Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams, and today I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment.
In this episode of the Power of Design podcast, Mike Moore shares how his journey from residential work to leading commercial projects shaped his philosophy of planning, clarity, and disciplined construction management. His approach shows how technology, detailed budgeting, and transparent communication elevate project outcomes. Let his story inspire you to build with intention and lead with excellence.
Mike, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to
Sure.
be here.
Yeah, I know we met maybe a couple of years ago,
Yes.
a little bit more, and we have done a couple of projects together, and I really enjoy working with you and your team and getting to know you better. So I'm excited to learn more about you, your life, and your business.
That's awesome. I'm excited to share, and I ditto everything you said. I think we've had an awesome experience with all the projects with you and your team, and I'm excited to do more in the future.
Cool. So you're a general contractor, right? But why don't you start by giving me a background of how you are, where did you grow up and that journey that took you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm one of the few I feel like that have kind of always been fascinated with construction, and ever since I was little, and have moved into the construction industry, got a construction management degree, and ultimately went to go work for a large general contractor before starting my own company. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, small town just north of Pittsburgh that not many people know of. Beaver County is where I grew up. And I remember whenever I was 18, I did a lot of work with a custom home builder. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go off to college and try to get some experience, doing different things. I did want to get a degree. I felt like that was important. But then my plan was to come back and take over the custom home builder's business that he had. And it was a friend of mine at the time. It was her father that I was going to come back and work for. And after working a couple summers with him, but that's where I got exposed to a big national builder whenever I was in college. And completely changed my mind. It was a big fancy project in downtown Charlotte. Went to UNC Charlotte, and just fell in love with commercial construction. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. So after a couple years, actually, whenever I graduated in 2010, not to date me or anything like that, the economy was not great.
Right.
So I did struggle a little bit to find a job, but ultimately landed with another large national contractor. And spent 7 years with them building buildings really in the Carolinas and also all over the country.
That's awesome. I like that the experience to working residential and commercial, because they're two completely different worlds, for design and construction.
They are. There's a huge difference. I mean, I try to stay focused right now with MC Moore Construction strictly on the commercial side of things. But we have done residential projects if it's for the right type of customer or a client that we've done commercial work with. And it's definitely a struggle. You have to, I feel like, develop your niche and find out what you're really good at to continue kind of to grow the business or grow what you're trying to do, because residential definitely takes one set of trades, one set of skills, way different from the GC side of things than it is from a commercial standpoint. And my background working with a large national contractor, these $100 million and plus projects, and then coming down to build someone's home and dealing with a different set of subs is way different.
Yeah. Absolutely. Even from the design side, when you do a set of construction documents for a house, it's more like a design development level in the commercial side. The drawings are very simple, and I feel that the contractors have a lot more power and more direction on the construction. They make a lot of decisions, even selecting finishes with the clients. Building code is not that strict, and because of that, you probably have more responsibility and liability. And rather than the commercial side, where is more architect heavy, you guys just do what's on the plans, and you're deferring all that responsibility to the architects.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I've learned very quickly in my career that I am not a designer and I am
Mhm.
not an architect and I am
Yeah.
not good. That's not my area of expertise. And I do feel exactly what you said is like from the residential standpoint, some of these homeowners are just pulling plans off online that they've purchased for a couple $100,
Yeah.
and then yeah, you're able to go get a permit, but it's like, okay, well, I guess I got to know how to do this and go figure it out and
Yeah.
help them select finishes and colors, and they're like, what do you think of this or that? I was like, I'm not the person to ask. Here, let's find you an interior designer or an architect to help bring
Right.
on board, or always try to steer them that way from a residential standpoint. But that's why, commercial, and I think you and I both work so well together, is because you guys, do a lot of work, and we've talked about this, I think, in the past, and,
Yeah.
you guys are really passionate about your drawings, making sure that they're complete, working with your client on the front end, selecting finishes,
Yeah.
so that we know what they are when it comes time to build, where I'm not trying to, all these schedules are getting so tight now from a commercial standpoint that things that used to take 6 months, they want done in 4 months or 3 months.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure that out. And whenever I'm sitting here trying to install my stone for my countertops, and I'll call the owner up and say, hey, did you select a stone? And they're like, no, we didn't select anything yet. And the
Yeah.
drawings say TBD. I'm like, oh man, we're just, you're already steps behind.
Yeah. And I always see it as, to me, the more complete the drawings, the better, because you don't want surprises for the client, right? You don't want the client to show up and see something for the first time and say, "Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You never asked me what that was." So the more information and the more exchange we can have with the client, the better, because at least they have the opportunity to say, this one or this one or this one. And during the design time, that's the time where you really want to make those decisions.
That's absolutely the time. I feel like so many people want to hurry up and get started, or the drawings aren't done yet. Like you guys are still wrapping up those final important details, but we have a permit. Let's go get it done. And I was like, guys, we just got to spend a little bit more time on the front end, plan this out, coordinate it. Then we can go ahead and execute much faster instead of hurrying up and get started before the permit lands or
Yeah.
something like that. Everyone wants to start before we have kind of everything, all our ducks in the row.
Yeah.
And it just causes issues, like you said, on the back end, and things to slow down, or people don't like the finished product because they're like, well, I didn't know you were going to pick this type of fabric wall panel and
Yeah.
or this color, and let's select something different. So yeah, that's absolutely very important.
What will you say are the processes or behaviors or systems you learn at a large contractor and a large company that you use in a smaller scale now, that they make a big difference for you guys when you're competing in the marketplace?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I feel like I hate to say this, but I think that's part of my elevator pitch. I mean, it was a void in the market I felt like was out there. And this isn't to, discredit anybody's talent or abilities, but I feel like, a lot of these small clients that we're working for from the restaurant standpoint, or small interior office upfits, after the core and shell has already been done, or a renovation to an existing space, I feel like these clients who don't have the big pockets or the ability to go spend the big overhead on the dollars, there was a lack of contractors out there to kind of fill that void.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was something I was always passionate about, because the company I used to work for taught me tremendously. Amount of information was very valuable to me, and bringing it into the MC Moore construction. But, having that ability of using the Procores, understanding submittals, understanding RFIs, understanding the value of the architect and the role of the architect, and the value of the CA, I wanted to be able to bring that overall turnkey experience, and more so that forethought of planning ahead that we got so well at on these big complicated projects, scheduling MOPS when we're working in data centers, with different shutdowns of heavy equipment, or, mechanical equipment, or technology. Any sort of downtime is a huge exposure for folks, and allowed us to bring that planning to these 12-week projects, 4 months projects, 1-year projects, to help accelerate them through and give them just a different experience, where there's not as much overhead that has to be covered by the general contractor.
Yeah, we have a similar approach on how we work. As we're a smaller firm, but myself and Andrew, we both work at very big firms, so we execute work as we used to do in that big scale with smaller projects. And one of the things that I found is, one, sometimes clients don't appreciate that because they don't know,
Yeah.
right? Because the clients you have in a large company, they know how to do, they're used to, they recognize the value. But with the smaller clients, they don't see it, and it's hard to sometimes to compete, because when they compare our fees with other architects, they're half, and they're like, oh, this is cheaper. And like, yeah, I know. I know, we're not selling that,
Yeah.
we're selling a complete different level of service.
Yeah.
But they don't see it. So sometimes it's hard to sell, because through an RFP or a quick conversation, people don't see that difference. And at the same time, it's hard for them to understand that there might be a little bit of more cost, but at the end of the project, it's going to be cheaper, because um, very cheap architect or a very cheap contractor is going to cost you more in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, and adding on to that, I mean, I think it's so important to have the right team. I mean, that's the other thing. And a lot of people ask me, like, "What's your specialty?" It's like I'm not really chasing a specialty. I've done everything, but like right now, with the size of our company, I want to be able to be selective, and I am able to be selective. And
Yeah,
exactly the same service that you guys are selling is the same thing that we're kind of selling. Is yeah, we're not going to be the bottom number. We'll try to get there, but we're going to be include everything. We're going to include the design, but
yeah,
we're going to get the stuff that's not shown on the drawings to
sure.
minimize change orders in the future. A lot of whenever I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do and like filling that void and bringing the large GC experience to more value to the smaller customer, I was figuring out what makes the most sense, and how do we do that. And I felt like the best way to do that was trying to explain to them the cost, and yes, we're a little bit more, but we're walking the job and we're including all of the unknowns because
Yeah,
of the planning that we are used to, because of the thoroughness. We're walking every project before we're submitting a bid. It takes us a lot of time on that front end, so that on the back end, you're not experiencing a bunch of change orders. And I guess where I was going with that was that's where a lot of the owners were telling me, it was like, yeah, Mike, I hired this GC. They came in at this number, and I've had 50% worth of change orders. And,
yeah,
now their number is way above. And yeah, I know some of those are changes, but not all of them are changes. And I was like, well, that's the difference is, the
yes,
drawings can't capture everything. And
yes,
some of it is constructability and knowledge, and also just being in the marketplace. I mean, you got to understand what the inspectors are looking for. And,
yeah,
we have a small radius that we're, kind of currently working in an hour and a half of Charlotte. And so we are starting to get to know, and we know a lot of the inspectors. So we know, hey, the fire marshal is going to look for this, or the mechanical inspector is going to look for that. Is the systems really there? Let's pop the tile to see before we start renovating the space. Oh, you guys are missing air handlers. VAVs above, or the VAVs have all been disconnected and don't have any filters on them, above the ceiling. Like, this all has to be addressed. As
yeah,
soon as we open up the ceiling and rip it down to put a new ACT, when we call in our overhead, the inspector doesn't care if it was a pre-existing condition. They want it up to the new code.
yeah. I've heard contractors, not very reputable, that they love working with architects that they do just basic permit drawings, because they can do as many change orders, because you just point at the drawings, and if the drawings are bad, it's open-ended. You can get any excuse to just give a change order to the owner.
Yeah.
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 What about your process for people that are listening that they're not familiar with the industry? Why don't you explain how do you get involved with a client from the beginning, and that process that you take them from that first engagement to finishing the construction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, most of our stuff has all been word of mouth. We're not doing any massive marketing campaigns or anything like that. And most of our connections or introductions to new clients is through architects, like you, that we've worked on in the past, developers, or real estate brokers, because I feel like they're kind of envisioning or meeting the client first.
Yeah.
We're currently doing projects where, hey, this is our first brick and mortar store. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. You go to kind of like your real estate broker to find you a location. Great. I feel like that broker introduces you to an architect. Then the architect, has a great experience with that client, then introduces them to, several different GCs. And then from like that standpoint, once we try to find a way to stand out, kind of just have an open and honest conversation. I was like, listen, we're not going to be the lowest number. We've kind of hit on that, but you're going to get a complete number from us.
Yeah.
And if you are hard bidding this and you're reaching out to multiple people, have your architect, hopefully they've included the cost to do this and included as part, but like bid leveling is so important.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that, GCA, GCB, and GCC will all submit numbers that'll have a wide range. Usually you get a group that are together. That's great. That means probably all those numbers are pretty good. When you have outliers, the owner can't say, well, this number's the lowest. They have everything. They bid the same set of drawings as the other ones because there's gaps. I mean, we just bid a job here recently, and one of the big gaps is the GC that was a low number excluded permit.
Oh,
I mean, that's a $10,000 number, that could be a pretty big impactful number that, if you don't know it's in there or think it is, and then there's a big change order right off the bat. Okay, well, before I can sign your contract and get your drawings, I need you to pay me this additional fee, or you guys need to pay for that yourself. So I think, we sell our bid proposals are very detailed. There are a lot of pages of clarifications, and it's not to CYA ourselves. It's really just to help clarify the gaps of what we're including, to allow the owner or the architect to bid level us against the competition and see what we've had included and what we've excluded from the job and the assumptions that we've made.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen your budgets and they're very detailed, and that's very helpful because you understand where the money is. When the budgets don't have enough detail, you just don't know where to push and pull.
Yeah.
When you do, you're like, okay, this is the number. I know where the money is. I can adjust accordingly. The other thing that I like always when we see budgets from GC is to include contingency, because it's not going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's in the number or even below the number, say, hey, recommended contingency, 5%, 10%, whatever it needs to be at that moment in time. When I don't see contingency, I'm like, man, come on. There's got to be contingency.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially if they're getting money like funding from a bank or from someone else. It's, one thing if they're covering it personally, it's their new project. We always try to say, or we try to put the contingency line in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what's this? Scratch this 100,000 that you're adding to the project. It's like, well, no, this is to cover those gaps. Like, just plan for it when you go to the bank to request funds if you're, need a lender to help you build out your project. Because the last thing you want to do is, our job's $500,000, and then we do have some changes that you want for some unforeseen conditions or whatever, and then you don't have the funds to go over that. And now you're asking for another loan or going back to the bank. Like, everyone should be planning for some sort of contingency, and I hate to say this, but whether you tell the GC about it or not, there should be a contingency somewhere planned into the project. And I think a good architect like you guys, always advise the client on the front end that, hey, you should go ahead and include 5, 10, 15% just for the unknown.
That's
because
right.
This is an existing space. We don't know how the inspectors are going to be. We don't know what's going to come up at the end of the little nuances that may have been missed. Plus, there's going to be stuff that you see that you might just want to change.
Sure.
So that, you just want to have that conversation up front. And I think like the other thing that we try to do very well, or that I feel like is very important to me, is communication. I think, kind of going back to what sets us apart or part of our process, I'll always tell everyone, listen, I try to over communicate. I think communication is key with any team. I think that's what
100%.
makes you successful.
Yeah.
That's what's very important. I feel like a lot of folks just only want to talk about the good. I'll say I'm at the opposite spectrum, and I know this is probably a working on list for me and has been for a long time, but need to communicate the good. But I always like to talk about the bad.
Yeah.
How do we make things better? What didn't go right? What is our lessons learned? How do we improve that? And I'm going to tell the owner, hey, we have an issue with the glass. Like, we were expecting it Monday. It's delayed. I'm working on a resolution. I'm not trying to sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
And whenever we select subcontractors, I try to tell them that same thing. Like, listen, we can fix anything. I hate to say this, it's all time or money.
Yeah.
But where it costs more time and more money is if we don't know about it.
Yeah.
So if you come to me and say, listen, I was expecting the windows, and I'm not picking on windows subcontractors, but for some reason I always use this example, but Probably had bad experience somewhere in the past.
Just say light fixtures.
That's right, light fixtures. That's another good one.
Yeah.
But light fixtures are supposed to be here Friday.
Yeah.
Well, Friday comes. Oh, Friday. Well, what Friday are we talking about?
Yes.
Like, just tell me, like, hey, we were expecting them Friday, in 2 weeks from now, but we just got notification that they're delayed. Then we can plan for that. Like, I can make arrangements. Let's see if we can get a partial inspection above the ceiling. If it's light fixtures, like, let's find a way to button up the area. We'll put plywood up, over the windows so that we can keep going with construction and get dried in. But we got to openly communicate. Like I said, the good is great, but I can plan for the bad if I know about it. And I almost like to share that. And then I feel like it's a time thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, well, I love to talk about the good, but we're all so busy. And when you run a small business, with a small amount of people wearing a lot of hats, everyone's running around. It's controlled chaos, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. So it's like, we got to just only talk about what we can to keep things moving, keep the projects moving forward fast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
So you meet a client, do your budget, everything looks great, they sign it. What's your first move after you got a signed contract?
First move is start planning. I feel like we start planning to a certain extent up to pre-con or free-con. I always forget how you spell that.
That's a good one. I didn't know that.
But, once you do get the job, you're like, wow, I finally realized that there is. And the first thing that my team does is, submittals. We go start awarding the trades. Usually LOIs go out to them, letters of intent, to get them on board and say, start turning around your submittals as fast as you can so that we can get them over to the architect and get them start to reviewing, mainly focused on long lead time items off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
I'm used to, again, coming from the large GC side of things, we would have to submit on every single screw that we put into the building, piece of drywall tape, drywall mud.
I know.
It's nice now that we don't have to do that because that was so time consuming and a long submittal register.
Yeah.
But now focus just kind of on the mainly long lead tight items, the big items, the shop drawings, and getting that whole process started is what's important to us. And then just delivering the same, MC Moore client experience that we want to do to everybody.
Yeah.
So, having it set up in Procore, showing them how to log it in. I think that Procore, I hate to use that word because they're the most well-known.
Yeah.
And, it's a big, expensive piece of software for a GC to go and add, probably just like AutoCAD is from a design side.
Yeah.
But, we pay for that access for everyone is why the fee's so high for the GC, so that it's free for the architects, it's free for the subcontractors, it's free for the owners. And I think it's such a valuable tool just to keep kind of daily updates and progress, and allows you to quickly, for me, it's always at night because I have young kids, but to quickly go through and pull up the drawing or the photos for the day that the superintendents are posting, like, oh, great, this looks good. Or, oh, we better look at this. We need to make a note and follow up on this doesn't look right. Let's refer it back to the drawings. But I think there's just the powers of the photos and the communication and utilizing technology. I mean, trying to stay always on the cutting edge of technology and being a smaller company is tough, but that's something that we're trying to do and, continuing to improve on. And I think the value of that I learned from my larger GC. We had a whole department just focused on new technology and bringing AI and drones, and felt like we were always on the cutting edge. So I kind of wanted to bring that back to MC Moore and, again, the smaller companies.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. And, I hate that in every industry, but it's a reality. There is usually somebody who dominates the market and they have 90% share worldwide, and you have to use it.
Yeah.
and for you guys it's Procore, for us it's Revit. that it's very expensive, but hey, that's the best tool.
Yeah.
You just need to use it. Like, I don't want to default to something a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
It's just really good. And when somebody like you guys, because we work with the GCs that are all different sizes, and most of GCs that are smaller, they don't want to invest in Procore. But to me, that's when they're not using Procore, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know. It's going to take more time. The submittals, the organization, the pictures are very helpful. I do the same, every maybe once a week, I can go to Procore. I see the pictures and I can check a lot of things. Say, hey guys, what about this? What about that? I catch a lot of stuff just looking at basic pictures.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really have to be intentional to invest, because it takes money to do it. But is the way you differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
And it allows, like you said, even you to catch, as the architect or designer, or even the owner, if they're an out of town owner that can't run by the job site every week, or, architects, you guys don't have time, nor on some of the smaller jobs are you guys getting paid to go by the job site every week, where we have weekly OACs that I'm used to, weekly owner architect walks. On the larger jobs, yeah, that makes sense. You're doing that. But on the smaller ones where they're losing that attention, the pictures speak 1,000 words. Hate to be cliche and say that, but that's really what it is. And it allows you to catch a lot of things, fix them early, then it more costly later.
Yeah, absolutely. What about so you're doing submittals with you're ordering materials, you're getting all the trades organized, and then you guys start, installing, building. Tell me about that process all the way to finishing the project.
Yeah. So, it's important for us, to have a good plan. We spend a lot of time on the front end, sitting as a team, building a good schedule, and I think trying to follow that, sharing that with the subs. Obviously, I wish every single project schedule that I put together on day one, I never had to go back in and look at it or touch it ever, but that's not the case.
No.
Obviously, everything is changing. And I think that's one of the things that kind of drew me to construction, was that it was so different all the time. Yeah, you're building a building or you're doing construction, but all the construction projects are different. You take some of the same processes and procedures, implement them in the new job. So once we go ahead and get the subcontractors on board, permanent hand, that's important. Permanent hand, mobilize to the site, and then go ahead and, start coordinating the trades and executing on the schedule. One of the other things that we really like, that I feel like is a value tool, that we pull some from Procore, some that we create, is a weekly report. So we also issue kind of weekly reports for those that don't have time or don't want to go log into Procore, issue weekly reports. Behind the scenes, we're having coordination meetings with our subcontractors, whether it is tracking their materials, whether it's tracking, their progress against the schedule, whether it's just getting the subcontractors just all to talk to each other.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to our communication
right.
comment that we made earlier. It takes a team. It takes everybody. And that's what I think ultimately makes the project successful. We're having weekly coordination meetings with the owner. We just actually got done doing a job uptown. I felt like we had a whole football team for a little job, on our weekly OAC calls, but it went phenomenal. And it's just, to inform everybody. I can't stress enough on, really, it just boils down to communication, respecting each other, and just kind of doing what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
And executing then on that, which is the challenging part sometimes, but we've been successful so far. And then once we go ahead and get through the project, kind of go through the process depending on what it is, right? You start your underground, you get your inspections, then you pour your slab, then you frame your walls, then you get your MEPs for in-wall rough-in, then you go ahead and get your inspections again, then you start drywall, then you start framing ceilings, and kind of walk through that whole process, whether it's accelerated, elongated, just depending on the scope of work. And then it's a race to the end.
Yeah. What is that idea that I always see sometimes when I go to job sites 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the CO, I look at it and I'm like, there's no way they're finishing. How do you guys make that happen? Because it happens all the time. I'm like, there is no way. And like magic, in 3 weeks, this thing is done.
You put more work in place in the last 3 weeks than you did in the last 8 months. Somehow.
It always happens to me.
That's the smoke and mirrors. I don't know that's Penn and Teller. I don't know that I could give all those secrets away.
Yeah,
but
I'm always strict.
It always comes down. All these jobs, like I said, they've taken all the float out of it. They've taken all of the, they've skinnied it down so much. sometimes realistic, sometimes unrealistic. Sometimes I don't know if that's just the owner and the architect telling us GCs a made up date, knowing we're going to be after it.
Yeah.
Luckily, so far, I can say that I've hit all my dates and we're finished before. But I have definitely had those same experiences that I'm like, I go home at night and I don't want my team to hear this. So hopefully they don't watch this afterwards or they don't remember this. But I'm sitting there, I hate complaining to my wife saying, man, I just don't know how we're going to get there. Like we have 2 weeks left. There's this. These subs we're trying to work through. But my team has been very successful, I think, because of the dedication that they all have. And I think us just willing to put in the time and the planning to make it happen. So yeah, we have issues. How do we work around them? How do we eliminate the excuses in those last 2 weeks? Do we have to stay and man up and work extra hours, keep the job site open longer? And that's what it is. And, it's not ideal, but we may be overlapping some more of the trades.
Yeah.
But you find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I'd love to know more about Mike, father, husband, and friend. What do you do? Tell me about your family and what you do outside of work.
So I don't know how fancy your podcast and laying over things. I am going to throw this out here, but talking about family and friends, we do like the work hard, play hard mentality. Nice. And hopefully you don't kick me under the table for saying this. But one of ours was, right, we had a get together here this summer that me and you and both our wives had an after hour get together. And I actually brought you something.
Oh, wow.
I'll have to tell the story here before I go, but Mariana and Jack both came out with us. We met them over at the dock, picked them up on our boat for a work session.
Yes,
right, all straight business.
That's right,
all business. Afternoon Friday meeting, and we went out on the boat, and literally I was like, "Okay, is everyone good? We're getting ready. Throw down the throttle. We kind of take off." All of a sudden, I see this thing blowing out the back.
Oh yeah, you didn't forget about
Jack's hat, as soon as I say, is everyone ready? Lost his hat.
That's
and
right.
So we go try to quickly loop around, and I had no luck finding it. He goes, man, that was my favorite hat of all times. Right. So I did get a hat made special for you.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully, I don't know if it'll be your favorite, but next time you come out on the boat.
It's the same color.
What's important is this hat floats. And does not sink.
Wow, thank you so much.
So you got a floating hat for whenever we go out next time, so that
I'll wear it right now.
you can't lose it.
Thank you, man. I feel special.
And and I will have to say Jack was a phenomenal surfer. I think for his first time.
I was impressed with myself.
I don't think he fell at all, but the one time out of all his tries that he did fall, I do have a picture.
Oh wow!
So we'll have to see if someone can be able to flash it onto the screen here as part of the editing that I'll share it with. I
thought I fractured a rib. Yeah, I texted you because I went to the doctor. I had an X-ray and everything. They said, no, you're fine. But it lasted like 4 weeks. I couldn't sleep. It was bad.
I was waiting for the workers' comp claim to come through since we were on a business meeting, and I was like, "Oh, I hope Jack's okay."
No, but it was fun, man. We had a great time, and it was super fun. We need to do it again.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
I think, going back to that, family's important. And I try to stress that with all of the folks that, I work with is you guys got to take care of family first. And
sure.
I learned whenever I was at a large company, I feel like, everyone's talking about the work-life balance.
Yeah.
And work-life balance, I learned very quickly, is different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Some people work to live, some people live to work. And
yeah.
I've always been somebody that's eager to advance and do more and get to the next step. And how do I continue to grow? And I know that's not everybody's, determination or end goal. And we have a place for everybody. But one of the things that I learned quickly as a project manager, whenever I was with larger companies, is talk to your team and understand what that is so that can help you to grow. But I stress the value of, celebrate your birthday, celebrate your kids, making sure you're there for them, for their different after school activities, take them to school in the morning every once in a while, on your way to work. Yeah, come in a little bit later. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Go sneak away for a lunch with them. That's the things that they're going to remember. And you have such a short time with them. That like I said, I've always stressed the work hard, play hard. I had to bring up the boat, had to keep it hiding.
No, man,
I
that's
mentioned
awesome.
to you early, I brought out the same boat drinks and our same boat glasses for today. And I think that's what's fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about construction is there's so many like-minded folks
that
all kind of have a lot of the similar values. Some of the other things that, I just love is the value where we can sit there and have a very serious conversation, me and you, or me and the subcontractor, and be like, you're behind on this, or we need this design, or we're behind because we didn't do a good job coordinating, and we can go have some tough conversations. Sometimes we probably raise our voices at each other, but right after that, it's a light switch off, out of work mode. Hey, where are we going to go for lunch? And it's your turn to buy, right afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very important because we work a lot, right? 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. We spend more time probably in our office than in our home, because when you go there to our home, you're a couple of hours, you probably go to sleep. And workaholism to me is the biggest addiction of the modern adult. And we don't realize. And workaholism is, unfortunately, is looked as a badge of honor when you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? Man, I'm working 60 hours a week. Ah, man, good job. So it looks good in society that you're neglecting all the other areas of your life, right? Your own, your family, working out, doing whatever you like. It feels good. And it's so easy to fall into that because everybody's doing it. And we all, by nature, we want to fit in and be part of the group and don't feel left out. So we want to work more and do more and make more money and do all those things. But it's a dangerous line, because there is a point where you realize that you're missing out on life and all the things that are really important, like your family.
Yeah. Work will always be there. Now, they got to go fast. Maybe we could get a little bit longer schedule day when we plan to focus more on family. But it's definitely a tough balance to go and try to figure out. And, I have 2 folks now that work with me that just had kids. Their first child. So, they're coming in all groggy eyed in the morning and it's like, oh yeah, I remember those days. I'm glad we're past those.
That's right.
But now you guys get to figure that out. And it's a balance. It's working with your teammates. You got to bring in your tribe or your community and, utilize all your resources to help you and to make it. Cause it's a rat race. We were talking here earlier. I feel like whenever I first got here, I said, I feel like my life is Groundhog's Day. And I can say that coming from Pennsylvania, good old Punxsutawney. But, I was like, it's just a crazy cycle of, wake up, get the kids ready, hurry up, go to work, get to work all day, come home, get the kids dinner, put the kids to bed, finish working for whatever you didn't get done for all the meetings that you had during the day, go to sleep, wake up, do it all over again.
Yeah. And what do you do personally to keep yourself in shape, to be sharp, to do all what you need to do? Because I know it's very demanding, just the fact that you have your own business, that's huge. I know that at least probably 4% of businesses go over $1 million in revenues, and then more than that, they become smaller, and there is very demanding physically, psychologically, in any area of your life. Your family feels it. What do you do to keep up with all that intensity?
I'll say I'm not good at it because my work-life balance is more live to work. But that's actually one of my goals for the new year is coming up here. We're continuing to grow. We're getting some more processes and procedures in place. We're working on, I think actually last time we talked, I'm working on outsourcing some of the stuff that I've been doing myself and try to wear a little bit less hats so that I have time to focus on that, where I'm not spending my nights and weekends. But I got into a really good routine whenever I was actually working out in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
But I feel like you have to start your day early in construction.
That's right.
I was getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, going to the gym that was in the bottom of the building that I was living in whenever I was down there. And that allowed me to go ahead and, get my workout in, get that physical stress, get that, strength training, and just made me feel a lot better starting the morning than it is waking up, hurry up, rolling out to bed. And I think you have to plan for it, and you just got to make it a priority. And I have not done a good job making it a priority, but I will say, the boating is my passion. I'll say that, throwing it out there. I know it's getting colder, but me and one of my buddies were just out on the boat last weekend, still surfing without a wetsuit. So I'm hoping that I can make it through December. I got a couple more weeks before I feel like I pack up the boat for the next couple months through winter. But I think it is very important to find time and make it a priority as part of your day and schedule it.
Sure.
You got to find a time to schedule it and make it happen, because I do think that makes you function a lot better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tell me about your business in 2035. Describe it.
I hope all those same values and everything that we've kind of already talked about is all coming to fruition. That I'm sitting there kind of on the cruise control, stepping back, more of the getting out of the weeds.
Hmm.
I don't want to say cruise control because that's just not my personality, but stepping a little bit more out of the weeds, not doing a lot of the day to day, but focusing more bigger picture. I've had this conversation with a couple folks. I mean, one of my end goals from whenever I first started the company is I would love to see, the logo of the company that I'm running or own on top of a tower crane. I don't
Nice.
know why that's been a
Yeah.
goal of mine. I've had a lot of smaller cranes, but
Yes.
I'm still waiting for that tower crane project. I've done a lot of tower crane projects in the past, but they were all for the old company that I worked for. But that's something that I'd love to get to. Maybe it's not 2035,
Yeah.
but maybe it is a short time after that. That is definitely one of my goals. I mean, we have a good team that are all living that, work hard, play hard mentality that we like to be here because we do. We spend, I would say 40 hours. I wish.
Yeah.
It's definitely more on the 55, 60 hours a week,
Yeah.
with the folks that we work with every day. And, then finding time to continue to let them grow, develop, have families. But we are close knit. I'm excited about that, and we kind of continue to grow that team and building that new green generation. I mean, I'm excited to start taking folks, getting to the point where I have the folks to train
Hmm.
the next generation. Is important to me to work on over the next 10 years. So that we can pull the college grads or even the high school grads and bring them and introduce them to construction.
Yeah.
Because it's such a valuable tool. And I feel like, yeah, AI, I know that's another big, word out there that everyone's, afraid to lose their job or, whatever. But I think that's important to bring them into the mix because I don't see construction going away. Like,
No.
I don't think there's going to be a computer building a building
Yeah.
anytime soon. Knock on wood.
Yeah. um, my last question for you is: do you have a question for me?
Do I have a question for you? That is a good one. I guess twofold. I mean, what are you seeing from a design standpoint, kind of the next 6 to 12 months with kind of with the economy where it's at, where everything is? We were talking a little earlier about multifamily seems to be slowing down a little bit in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And, what are you looking at for when you're choosing or selecting GCs? What's important for you to pass along to the client or some of the complaints that you're hearing from clients that may not make it to the GC?
Yeah.
That's like 6 questions I
Sure.
asked you,
No, good.
but I'll
good.
take them all.
Yeah, good question. Good questions. So the first one, what do I see in the next like 6 months, 12 months in the marketplace? By design, since I started the business, we have always been very diversified. So we do government work, we do churches, we do adaptive reuse, we do townhomes, we do a lot of design build. So I'm always trying to see different buckets of money because all the money comes from different places: corporations, government, tax, donations. So I always try to have a little bit of all those because inevitably when economy changes, one of those is going to be weak. So at least we have one foot in the other one, and that has been very helpful for us. What do I see? I'm a positive person, and I always think things are going to be better. So I'm very excited for next year. I feel that once the interest rates drop a little bit more, the floods are gonna open, and it's gonna be crazy because most people are waiting on the interest rates to make that next move. That's something that I feel that has been keeping this year very strange for us. It has been very up and down. Like we go busy and not very busy, and busy and not busy. But I feel that next year is gonna be very exciting for us.
That's awesome.
On terms of GC, and selfishly, I always like to work with GCs that make our life easier. So one, use Procore. That's number
It's an easy one.
Yes, don't ignore the contingency on the project, and then during the process is just problem solving. We have worked with contractors that are $5 million to $1 billion. And so we know what we like. And you and I both know that you can perform at $1 million as if you were $1 billion. And it's just do what you said you're going to do. We had this conversation before. The basics, communication, be proactive, tell the truth, acknowledge if you make a mistake, say, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Let's fix it. There is a problem here. How can we do it? Don't say things that you're not going to be able to do. It's just things that are not complex, but they're not common to find. And that's what I'm trying to align myself with people like you guys. I think we had a good stride with the projects we have worked on, and really think we can do the same thing at a project that is 100 times bigger.
Yeah.
Because it's just the people that you're working with. When you work with an organization or a company, that's just an abstract name to define the people that are in it. But we know that at the end of the day, a project is defined by the project architect, superintendent, project engineer. Like if you have a really good trifecta there, that project will go to the other side efficiently, on time, and on budget.
It is. It's all about the team.
Yeah.
Designing the team, I feel like, is almost just as important as designing the building.
Yeah. Many times
end.
In Colombia, where I'm from, most of the work is design build. And it's not a contractor subcontracting an architect. It's the same company that builds it, design it, engineer it. And so the collaboration and communication is incredible because everything is going around the same group of people. In United States, that model is not very common. It's very disjointed and separated. And I know there are reasons for that, checks and balances, and you have other ways to see it. But every time I run into issues, I'm like, man, you should be in a design build company and just do it right the first time.
I've tried. I feel like I've done a lot of that with my background and trying to bring that design build into some of these smaller projects. But I just feel like a blank stare, like, oh, we're not paying for the GC to be involved on the front end.
Yes.
The architect's doing all of that.
Yeah.
It's like, but if we kind of collaborate early and you have your team early, we could bid out the subcontractors. We can get you competitive numbers, but find a way to select that GC early on is something that I try to strive or ask for. I haven't been super successful in it.
Yeah.
Some of the folks who have done multiple projects, yes, but it is a hard concept to grasp and understand that, hey, there's a little bit of extra money on the front end is going to go a long way on the back end.
Yeah, but it is possible.
Yeah.
Because people are doing it, and it's just finding the right client, the one that understands the value that brings to the table.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome, man.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much
it's been
for
great.
coming. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm very proud of you and everything that you're doing. I know you're going to be extremely successful, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Same. I appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, man. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.